My name is Katherine Mattis-Adams, and I am the sister to Stuart Mattis, who took his life in 2000. I'm the daughter of Fred and Marilyn Mattis, who co-wrote In Quiet Desperation with Ty Mansfield, and I'm the wife of Christian Adams, who had same-gender attraction and passed away in 2008. My brother, I never suspected that he was gay. He and I were always close. And then I started to see some of the same signs in my brother that I saw in some of my friends at BYU. The friends that I didn't know were gay until later, and I started to see the excuses they had for not dating. And I thought, my brother's saying those same things. And so I'd said something to my mom, I think Stuart's gay, and she'd say, oh, no, he's just really picky when it comes to girls. And then I started to see other things in him, and I started to think, yeah, I really think he's gay. And finally, after hinting around to him over and over again that it was safe to tell me, he finally told me that he was gay. And then I watched him, after he came out to my parents, I watched him go through hell, trying to come to grips with the fact that he was gay. He had spent his whole life up to that point trying to change, trying to get rid of those feelings and feeling like God didn't love him anymore. In the 2 years of living with my brother after graduating, and having him talk about so much of what he went through that we didn't know about leading up to that point, I realized how little that same gender attraction defines a person. And I know that the world sees same gender attraction and thinks that's what defines that person. And to me, it's so minor. There are certain characteristics that tend to come with same gender attraction, the stereotypical things, not in all, but in some. And you can either look at the same gender attraction as a blessing because of that, or as a curse, and it's all about what you make it. And my brother, unfortunately, looked at it as a curse and something to get rid of. My brother's depression became so great that he didn't know any other way out other than to take his life. And people said some really hurtful, hateful things about gay people. And my brother would sit in church and listen to people get up at the pulpit and say just awful things. And even when somebody says, I have a temple recommend, I hold true to my covenants, I have never acted out on these feelings, the ignorance that there is out there in the world about just that little word, 3 letters, gay. 3 letters, and it can completely change somebody's opinion of another person. And things just got so bad that his bishop told him it was okay to stop coming to church because he was so suicidal. And so he did. And eventually he went to the steps of the church and took his life. And because he was at the steps of the church, people have taken it for their own personal gain, whatever their political platform is, to prop up what they have to say. But the reason he did that was because, and he said this in his letter that he left for us, it was that he hoped his death would be a catalyst for some good. That he knew there needed to be a place at the table for those who struggle with same-gender attraction. And at that time, he didn't feel like there was. Again, my brother never acted on it. Never acted on it. So his plea and his point of doing it at the church was to say, there are those of us who are valiant members. We just need to know that we're a part of the church too, that we're okay, that we're not going to be looked down on and shunned because we have an attraction that we have no control over. Jumping ahead to 2003, 3 years later, I meet Christian online. So I've already had all of this exposure, all of this education on what it means to have same-gender attraction. and that being gay doesn't mean that you've acted on it, and that doesn't mean it's who you are. It's just a part of who you are, and that there's so much more to a person. We hit it off, and then we talked on the phone, and I realized he was gay, and immediately the Spirit said, look past this. And because I'd had the experiences I'd had with knowing that that wasn't what defined him, I was able to do that. I just felt like, okay, I'll get past this. And it wasn't a hard choice for me. And I know it is for some people, but for me, it wasn't. And so we started talking, and the relationship just developed rather quickly because the Spirit was a huge part of it. And I knew about 2 weeks in that I was going to marry him. Part of our conversation about him being gay was also the fact, and this is, I think, the part that some people have a really hard time understanding how I could look past this, was that he was out for 10 years. Out, had partners, did the whole gay lifestyle, all the stuff that goes along with it. He did. And so he knew what that life was like. And we talked pretty openly about that experience. And it weighed heavy on him that he had that challenge. And it was just one day he decided he didn't want to do it anymore. And we got married in September of 2003. And I want to say, you know, there's a lot you learn in hindsight as you step away from a situation. I want to say that all of the challenges in our marriage that every marriage has, you have your spats and whatever, and I want to say that none of it had to do with his same-gender attraction, but as I've looked back, I think some of it did. And it wasn't till later at the end, he died in 2008, but it wasn't until right before he died that I realized how much that played into our relationship. And he was very open with me about a lot of things. That's the one thing I wish he would have been more open with me about. Right before he passed away, I was pregnant. He went and decided to do a workshop. I don't know if you'd call it a conference, a workshop. It was a weekend thing called Journey into Manhood. And I'm not doing a commercial for Journey into Manhood. It was definitely right for him. I recommend it because I saw the changes it did in him. I would recommend looking into it. But he delved into all of the gunk that he'd been holding on to in all of his relationships, in how he felt about himself. And finally, whatever process they took him through, finally got to a place where he wasn't ashamed of being gay anymore. And I think part of that was because there was a weight taken off of his shoulders finally, where he finally recognized more of who he was, the person that I saw in him. He finally was able to start recognizing that. And he said, I'm not ashamed anymore. I carried my shame into my marriage, into my work, into my friendships, into every aspect of my life, and I'm not ashamed anymore. And I finally saw the real Christian. And then he passed away 2 weeks later. And I have no doubt that was part of his process. That was kind of that last thing that he needed to do to prepare him to move on. I have no doubt. And somehow the Lord thought I was the right person to help him through this process to get to that place. And I learned a great deal. I learned even when we feel like whatever we're going through is too hard, we don't understand it, we don't get it, I know the Lord gets it. I know He understands and He is in control.